Information burst forth like water from a breached dam as the life of a dying chaos worshipper flashed before me. Born in the lower classes and being an immigrant, Mokhtar's childhood was an unremarkable blur of drudgery. He spent his early youth constantly brawling in the rough neighborhood and soon discovered he had a knack for fighting. The little supervised boy had no qualms using underhanded techniques to achieve victory. Suddenly the vision began losing its focus. To compensate, I increased my psychic power output. Refocused again, I saw a young Mokhtar joining the army after coming of age. With a talent and taste for fighting, he yearned for more in life and had high hopes. Unfortunately for the future heretic, despite being a cut above the rest, entrenched hierarchies stifled his ascent. For years Mokhtar watched from the sidelines as privileged sons and daughters of aristocrats hogged most if not all the opportunities and promotions. It wasn't fair, not even close. The experience left Mokhtar with resentment at the deep-rooted establishment. For many years he festered his hatred in silence. The aftertaste of his emotions were red-hot and bitter, like a lump of burning charcoal. The vision suddenly lost its focus again as the heretic captain's vitality took a nosedive. Alarmed, I steadily increased my power output, straining at what was left of the man's synapses. But it didn't go well. My connection to his collapsing mind had become jarring. The sensation was akin to trying to build a card house inside a decrepit manor during an earthquake. While I could suppress the shaking of the foundation by pumping in more power, the whole place threatened to fall apart at any moment, and there was little time left. Wait, what am I doing? I was supposed to search for critical information but instead got swept away by the man's dying thoughts. Gritting my teeth, I increased my output further and started asking questions. Plus, how did you people get in here and why attack this place? Plus, Mokhtar struggled a bit before answers started to surface from his mind. They entered via tunnels to capture as many psychers as possible, an objective they had completed. Plus, what were you doing when we arrived? Plus, the heretic captain's thought revealed a chilling plan of overloading the primary plasma generator to obliterate the whole place, leaving little to no evidence. Plus, where are you taking the psychers and what are your plans with them? Plus, a feeling of confusion rose from Mokhtar's delirious mind. I took it as he genuinely didn't know. Plus, show me your leader. Plus, the mere mention of this figure seemed to jolt his dying mind, and he resisted again. In response, I simply overpowered his resistance with more psychically brute force. At first it felt like his mind was breaking for good, but surprisingly a vision eventually appeared. Continuing his story, later in his life Mokhtar stumbled onto some forbidden knowledge. As he was secretly researching further into the subject, one night he was approached by an enigmatic figure. With bated breath I prepared myself to witness this mysterious leader and was unnerved as an imposing person came into focus. It was a man looking of late middle age, yet he had an energy level that surpassed any youth. Tall and muscular, he was brimming with unnatural power and had an aura as haunting as a moonless night. The mysterious man's hairstyle was a chaotic symphony of curls and waves that seemed to defy all attempts at containment. On his face was a beard as wild as the untamed wilderness, cascading in unruly tangles like the branches of ancient trees. The man's eyes were pools of shadowed mystery that seemed to hold the secrets of ages past, gleaming with an unsettling intensity. Cloaked in mystic robes that billowed like an impending storm on the horizon, his whole appearance screamed, "I am an evil cult leader." In the vision the figure started to speak. His voice, a deep resonance from the very depths of the earth, carried with it a hypnotic allure that dripped with honeyed venom. From the vision I could tell spells of persuasion were woven into his words, but they weren't all deceptions. The figure spoke of many things. He spoke of the imperial elites hoarding all the wealth and powers, about the hypocrisy and corruption of the church. The man's statements would warrant him an instant death sentence by any imperium standard, and yet he spoke of these like that it was the most natural thing. After finishing his speech about the ills of the human empire, the man then revealed the coming of a new era where the light of Astronomicon would cease to shine, and the sector would be plunged into chaos. From this chaos a new world would be built, a world liberated from the shackles of the Imperium. In this new world, the man promised freedom and fairness where capable people like Mo-Kitar would be needed. There would even be opportunities for power and glory that were unattainable for the less privileged within the current stifling, established order. This guy sure knows how to package himself as a charismatic visionary. His sales pitch was excellent. As for Mo-Kitar, from the resonance in his memory I could tell his long-held disdain in life tipped the scales, and he easily embraced the heretical path by casting away his oaths to the throne to march towards a new world, a promised world free from the tyranny of the throne. With that, everything began to fade and Mo-Kitar was well and truly on his last legs. I held onto his collapsing synapses and threw in a last question. Plus, what is your leader's name? Plus. There was no reply, only another muted confusion. Plus, what do you call him? Plus. Another scene appeared, breaking and jittery. I could just barely make up Mo-Kitar swearing his new allegiance as he knelt before the man. Master. The vision ended. I found myself back in the grim interior of the Scholastica, my hand still touching the heretic's forehead with Thabros standing beside me. Mo-Kitar no longer exhibited any signs of life, though eerily his eyes were still open as if longing to see that promised world that never arrived for him. How was it? Thabros asked softly. I took a long look at the deceased heretic captain. Just a few minutes ago he seemed capable of taking on the whole world, and yet everything was gone from him in the blink of an eye. Standing up, I let out a long breath before answering. It was horrendous. The heretics entered via tunnels and were capturing psychers for some unknown plan. They also planned to overload the plasma generator to destroy any evidence. Most importantly, I saw their leader. He might be that arch-heretic you mentioned. Thabros' eyes seemed to glint at my answer as he replied, a while ago I was about to inform you that we received rumors that the cult's supreme leader has recently been active again. This should provide us with some clues to hunt down this bastard. While that was the first time I saw the Inquisitor being excited at something, my immediate concern was how the sisters were doing as the cracking of weapons could still be heard. How is the fight going? I asked. We have them, there is no way out. Let's finish it quickly. Thabros said and started moving towards the front, leaving me hurrying after him. While walking towards the gunfight, I witnessed the whole situation. The sisters were laying down disciplined fire at the cultists' critically exposed back line, every hit resulting in a gruesome death. Bolters and storm bolters barked relentlessly, with the heavy bolter carried by Sister Lysandra being the loudest of all. Caught between the Dugin security force in the front and with battle sisters on their back, the cultists were being decimated. Shocked, leaderless and being sandwiched by our pincer attack, their raw emotions of fear and desperation were palpable even from my position, just like their victims not so long ago. Suddenly my mind registered a new vox broadcasting from the enemies. A new voice was speaking with great urgency. Brothers, let's take down as many corpse worshippers as we can. Prepare yourself. Seemed like someone had taken up the leadership role. As I was thinking that, smoke suddenly blossomed in the corridor, quickly obscuring the whole place. Then that same voice ordered with a tune of finality, with me. For the promised world. Under the cover of smoke, an unknown number of combatants stormed out of their hiding places and charged down the corridor, screaming at the top of their lungs. Startled by the cultists' desperate attempt, I immediately activated thought acceleration before using Auspex to sweep the area, revealing the enemy's locations. That done, I updated the tactical field overlay in a heartbeat, nullifying the smoke cover. The battle sisters, however, held their fire despite being updated with the tactical information, and instead simply let the heretics close in. Just as I was wondering what the sisters were doing, in slow motion 2 of the Celestian sisters stood up from their cover, a combi flamer in each of their hands, with pilot lights burning. It was then I realized the heretics had made a grave mistake. They were charging one of the most renowned flame users of the Imperium. Time flow resumed just in time for me to witness searing blazes pour forth from the flamers, engulfing the corridor together with the charging cultists. The whole area was immediately filled with the burning scent of promethium. Incredibly, A few cultists emerged from the inferno covered in fire, flailing and screaming as they continued to stumble forward. Looking unimpressed, the sisters swiftly blew them off with near-point-blank shots, upping the brutality of this hellish engagement. Amidst screaming death cries, Thaborus and I joined up with the sisters. This fight was finally wrapping up with the cracking of weapons simmering down. I was relieved to see that none of the sisters sustained any major injuries before turning my attention to the aftermath, and what I saw made me wince. In front of us, more than a dozen burnt cultists lay dead or dying on the floor. Amongst a corridor of exploded and charred bodies were a handful of individuals who I could not decide to either be very lucky or otherwise. These people were still alive and moaning painfully, half-cooked with hair and cloth burned off, their skin still sizzling with a sick fatty scent. Further away, the clearing smoke revealed the decimated cultists' main rank, many of them missing huge portions of their bodies that ended in nauseating gory messes, a very common occurrence from a direct bolter hit. Bolter rounds and humans never mix well. As I stood at the edge of the charnel house feeling apprehensive at the carnage, a Vox message came through. "Thank the throne. Thorn, is that you with the battle sisters out there?" It was from Cale to Thaborus. "Affirmative. Hold your fire," Thaborus said. "We are coming out, don't shoot." "All right, do it slowly," the Inquisitor replied before switching his channel to contact all the sisters. "Friendlies approaching, hold fire but stay alert." Shortly after, amongst the fading smoke, I saw movement. Forewarned by Thaborus, the sisters held their weapons in check as the Scholastica survivors left their defensive position. The crowd was moving cautiously, making sure the cultists along the way were neutralized as they crept towards us. As the small crowd came into full view, Thaborus walked out to meet them. I was wondering if I should join the Inquisitor when Alysia and her Celestians abruptly blocked my path, acting like a barrier between me and the newcomers. For a moment I was about to protest before deciding to allow them their vigilance. The crowd was a mismatched bunch of people, from administrators to security personnel. A late middle-aged man who resembled Sir Sean Connery in his 60s was leading in the front, dressed in a dull Imperial stormcoat with some armor pieces. Like Thaborus, he was armed with a bolt pistol. My hunch told me this person must be Cale. I could not help but imagine him to be quite handsome during his prime. Behind the bootleg Sean Connery came a plethora of colorful characters. There was a middle-aged lady with a noble-looking attire right behind Cale, followed by a few individuals looking like personal aides, then 2 hooded tech priests, and finally an assortment of armed personnels. Finally both sides met over a hall full of dead cultists, and for a moment no one spoke, only stares were exchanged. Just as it was starting to get awkward, Cale shattered the silence with a string of hearty laughter. After having everyone's attention, the man holstered his weapon, turned to his colleagues and spoke in a booming voice, "By the throne. I bet none of you ever foreseen the day when you would be glad to see an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor visiting unannounced, huh?" For a second I was surprised by Cale's bold antics before recalling that he and Thaborus were acquaintances. I peeked at the Inquisitor to find that he just seemed slightly amused. While Cale's greeting was unorthodox to say the least, his actions relaxed the tense atmosphere considerably. Just as I was assuming Cale was a goofy character by nature, he suddenly turned all serious, properly formed the Aquila hand salute and said out loud, "All hail our savior, Thaborus Thorn of the Holy Inquisition." Soon most of the people behind him followed his example and formed their Aquila signs. Thaborus nodded and returned the gesture. "By his will, we miraculously made it in time," the Inquisitor said. "You lot have this other person to thank though, she contributed the most for your salvation. Before that, is my junior trainee Zaki here with you? The null boy?" Cale turned to the lady behind him. In response she looked to another one of her aides and ordered with a cultured voice, "Kindly request Agent Z to come forward." Soon a familiar little boy appeared from the crowd, walking stiffly at first, unsure of himself. When the boy saw the grim Inquisitor, his demeanor changed completely and he started running, calling out with joy, "Master Thaborus." The little guy stopped right in front of the looming Inquisitor before properly bowing. "Good to see you, Zaki." I got your acquaintance here who insisted on coming along to see to your well-being, Thaberus said while looking back. After locating me, he gestured for me to come forward. I lightly pushed the somewhat reluctant sisters aside to join him in the front, and immediately my appearance created some confusion. A young maid? What is this girl doing here? I sensed lots of questions from the people we just rescued. My attire was totally out of place within a force of battle sisters with power armor and a battle-ready inquisitor after all. A thing to note was that while pictures of me active during the last great Civil War battle were quite widespread, the Imperial machinery did a great job on censoring those which featured my face clearly from the public. On that note, I was informed by many ecclesiarchy dignitaries that meeting me in person was a totally different experience from looking at the pictures, and many of them expected me to be taller. So at this point, me being unrecognizable by other people despite being the hottest topic in town was understandable. However, none of those questions were valid to Zaki. In the boy's eyes he saw his only friend visiting. Visibly excited, the boy looked to Thaberus, and after receiving a nod he ran to me. Sirin. Alysia and her Celestians flinched at the kid for directly addressing me without honorifics, but I couldn't care less. I had already gone before them to receive the little person. Zaki, I greeted the boy before picking him up, secretly enjoying a fleeting moment of false normalcy like the first time we met. After what I went through to get here, this tiny reward was well deserved. While the rest of the crowd looked on in confusion, Kale seemed to have figured out my identity, as his facial expression switched from neutral to one of utter surprise. Just then Thaberus spoke again. She is your true savior for today. Without her contribution, things might have gone down very differently. I present to you the living saint candidate, Lady Sirin. After the Inquisitor dropped his words, immediately the whole place tensed up again. Kale was the first to bow deeply and many others quickly followed his example. Soon, almost the whole crowd was bowing before me. Looking at the sudden development, Zaki had this dumbfounded look on his childish face. While scenes like this never failed to be equally mortifying and cringe-inducing for me, after playing the part of a saint candidate for 2 days straight at the monastery, I was getting better at handling them. I even developed a detached view of looking at it. These people weren't bowing to me, they were paying respect to the powers I inherited and my place as a proxy of their god's divinity. Nothing personal here, just nod and accept their show of homage. Special thanks to Regalis for always sponsoring my perfect poker face, the real MVP lifesaver. From the sisters I could sense both pride and slight annoyance, pride for my divinity being acknowledged, annoyance at the 2 unmoving Mechonicus tech priests who failed to show proper respect. As I understood, members of the Mars priesthood had a very different view on the Emperor's divinity and they weren't bound by common imperial laws and religious edicts. Please be at ease and rise, I said to the crowd, and could not help but notice the staggering contrast between the sense of serenity carried by my soothing feminine voice and our immediate surroundings of a hall of messy dead bodies. As the crowd was straightening back up, from their back came a sudden clamor followed by a sharp burst of psychic resonance. Alarmed, I looked in that direction and saw an incredible sight. A small orange figure bursting with psychic energy was moving with incredible speed. Right on its tail were 4 individuals clad in that same sinister-looking black armor I saw earlier. The 4 black-armored figures were all armed with a spear-like weapon, and even from a distance I could tell that they were not fooling around. Their every stab and jab was fully meant to kill, but the little orange figure was too fast for them, always being a step or 2 ahead. While Thaberus clicked his tongue at the unexpected event, from the surprised expressions of Kale and his companions I deduced this could be something serious. Go to Thaberus, I said to Zaki, gently letting him down with a pat on his back. The boy gave me a quick nod before running to his boss. If this was a trap for either of us, the Inquisitor could use a null to increase his odds of survival. Alysia and her Celestians were already forming around me, tensed with weapons raised. It was then the small figure in the distance finally ditched its pursuers and suddenly headed straight for me. Just my luck, a demon host assassin? No time to second guess. With self-preservation instincts taking over, My thought acceleration instantly went to overdrive as I entered my psychically active state. Going into a defensive posture, I blasted out my halo at full strength in the faint hope of intimidating it. If we survived this, Thaberus would surely give me an earful of "I told you so" on exposing myself to risks. As the divine radiance filled the space between me and the oncoming blur, for the first time I got a good look at the small figure. It was not the expected horrible visage of a demon-possessed individual, but that of a terrified normal-looking human boy. The boy wore an orange jumpsuit that was not dissimilar to those of prison's standard issue, and he was screaming via telepathy. Plus help tilde exclamation mark plus. His otherworldly plea was heard by none of the sisters surrounding me, and I could tell from their micro-movements they were about to discharge their bolters. Due to a series of unforeseen circumstances, a child psyker was about to be killed right in front of me. Not if I can help it. In a split second I decided on my actions. Still experiencing time dilation with my thought acceleration, I labeled the boy as an ally in the field command system, that should mark the boy as a friendly fire hazard sign for all the sisters to see on their helmets targeting site. I then prepared myself, calling out just as time flowed back to normal from my perspective, infusing power into my words. Stop. Don't shoot. Miraculously, the battle sisters managed to stop themselves from pulling their triggers by a hair's breadth. The boy, however, flinched at the sight of my halo and the many guns pointing at him, and he slipped with a helpless yelp, falling to the ground. By sheer momentum the kid skidded a few more feet and ended a small distance away from my position. The 4 black armored pursuers, however, showed no intention of stopping their attack. They moved onto the fallen boy with weapons raised to kill. Reacting with a swiftness surprising even myself, I leveraged the shoulders of Alessaya and another Celestian sister to propel myself over. The sisters gasped in surprise as I passed over them with a quick somersault. I landed right beside the boy, just in time to parry away 2 spear strikes that were aimed at him with my bare hands. I felt odd sensations from my brief contact with those black spears. These are anti-psyker weapons? Even facing me with my halo up close, these black armored individuals showed no signs of being intimidated, nor were their movements impeded. I could neither sense any emotion nor read their minds, though a quick use of Analytica on one of them did yield a result. Human, augmented, Black Sentinel. They must be some sort of special anti-psyker units of the Scholastica Psychana. Luckily, while they seemed to be above human average in speed and strength, they weren't transhuman nor exceptionally strong. By now the sisters were rushing over and cursing the sentinels for their continuous attack despite my direct intervention. A 3rd spear strike came, again aimed at the boy. I snatched him away from certain death while parrying the spear away, my mind already tracking a 4th attack coming for me from an odd angle. In truth, I had been restraining myself to avoid injuring anyone. Just as I was contemplating on applying more strength to control the situation, a gunshot sounded with a very precise hit that deflected the final spear away. Cease your insolence. I will kill all of you if you dare to strike at the Saint Candidate again. It was Thaberus, looking furious with a familiar auto pistol in his hand. The Inquisitor had fired a warning shot with the weapon he had offered me not long ago. The bolt pistol would have been overkill. Sentinels, stand down. Kale added his voice at the same time to defuse the situation. With that, the Black Sentinels finally stopped their attacks and I was immediately surrounded by sisters of battle with raised weapons. The semi-relaxed atmosphere carefully cultivated by Kale was completely gone by now, replaced by something high-strung and dead serious. That lady with the noble attire, now revealed to be a psyker with her resonance, was even visibly shaking with fear. Wait, why fear? I looked around and found every visible face on the Scholastica crowd was one of either utter shock or abject horror. Why is everyone looking like their life is on the line? I wondered for a moment before remembering my halo was still blasting in full intimidation mode, bathing the whole area with what must have been a suffocating pressure for normal people. After mentally facepalming myself, I turned my halo off and spoke up to de-escalate the situation. Sisters, lower your weapons. It was a misunderstanding. With that, the tension in the air finally subsided and we moved away from the edge of starting another fight. Fabris came over with an apprehensive-looking Zaki right behind him. The Inquisitor took a look at the whimpering boy who was clinging onto me and asked, "What was that all about?" "Is he?" I sensed no taint in him. I said, "He risked his life to approach me and was asking for help." Kale also tried to approach but stopped when two sisters pointed their bolters at him. He quickly raised his hands and spoke in an apologetic tone. "My lady, I am so sorry about what just occurred." Fabris waved him to stop and asked me, "Do you need a moment?" I nodded. The Inquisitor turned to Kale, taking the man away to ask his own questions. While they were walking away, Neandra voxed in to reveal she had located the other enemy commander in the mess outside. Currently the assassin was waiting for the sororitas convoy to arrive before striking her quarry for maximum disruption. Meanwhile, the rescued boy was still embracing one of my legs with all his might like a drowning person on life-saving driftwood. "You are safe now, please let go," I asked nicely. The boy complied and stood back before staring at me with his puppy-like eyes. "So, why were you asking for help?" I asked. The boy started whimpering again, but at the same time he communicated telepathically. "Plus you. You must be that Saint Cassie said everyone was talking about. Help me, I wanna go home!" Plus. From my point of view he was both crying and talking at the same time. The experience was jarring. I knelt down, pulled him closer while communicating back with his preferred method. "Plus, calm down, what is your name? Tell me what is going on." Plus, while we conversed via telepathy, to an outsider it would look like I was just comforting a crying boy. "Plus, I am Gideon, 6 standard years old. You can read minds, right? Like Cassie, you can see memories. Read my mind. You need to see everything. Everything! Plus, the boy said and tried to guide my hand to his forehead, but it would not work without cooperation from my end. I had no idea who this Cassie was and never met anyone so willing to share their mind. It felt like the boy was just trying to dump his life on me. Somehow I got a bad feeling about this. His sheer eagerness to share was unnerving. Just what is he trying to show me? Plus, calm down, Gideon. Why do you need me to see your memories? Plus, I asked. Plus, they erased it before, but I got them back! Plus, he exclaimed with streams of tears running down his cheek. Plus, you need to see where my home is to send me back. Will you help? Plus, while the kid was not making perfect sense, something about his story was sounding scarier by the moment, making me reluctant. Plus, see it. See it please! Plus, he insisted. Plus, all right, I will take a quick peek. Plus, I touched the boy's forehead apprehensively, allowing the process to take place, then I quickly recoiled and severed the connection. Apart from the boy's mundane life, what I saw briefly cast a new light on this place and sent shivers down my spine. This place was no school, it never was. The Scholastica Psychana was an institutional madhouse where untrained psychers were gathered to either go through the system, die trying, or worse. Suddenly sensing more eyes on me, I looked up at the far end and saw for the first time a host of minor psychers peeking over. The sorry bunch were being guarded by more black sentinels. Some were so skinny their thin necks were showing up like sticks. Metallic collars could clearly be seen on some of them. I looked down at Gideon again and for the first time properly noticed just below his orange suit was the same metallic collar around his neck. I touched the device and realized it was a combination of location tracker and vital signs monitor, with an empty slot for explosives. What about his mentioning of erased memories? I checked on the boy again and found a tiny lump of anomalous energy on his head, looking like what could only be described as patches of faintly glowing strings from my otherworldly perspective. I studied the anomaly carefully and my instinct told me that this was put in place to disrupt certain functions of his mind. Looking closer at the seal, I found it compromised with a few places subtly breached from the inside out. An understanding came to me, the boy must have overcome it with his power. Now that I think about it, for a young boy of his age, he should be considered ridiculously powerful to exhibit a level of raw power close to that of a sanctioned battle psyker like Fulton. Then everything clicked for me. From what I remembered, the Great Warp Storm Cicatrix Maledictum happening in this period brought forth many grave problems for the Imperium, one of which was the outbreak of new psykers and the sudden increase in power for many existing ones. Gideon must have experienced a sudden abnormal power growth that broke his mental seal, which explained how he regained his previously suppressed memories. From what I saw from his memories, I knew the boy was terrified of this development and what would happen if people found out. His understanding was that psykers were like untamed monsters, which was the reason why they were treated as such. Another event that had shaken him recently was Zaki's arrival. From Gideon's point of view, the Null Boy was a walking and talking void person, one of the most terrifying things he saw in his life. Ironically, it was only after Gideon saw me embracing Zaki did he wager everything to come forward. For his childish logic, someone who would befriend a monster surely would not mind helping another, and he just really wanted to go home. As I was contemplating on the influx of information, Gideon interrupted my thoughts. "So, can you get me home?" I met the boy's expecting gaze. A dozen of scenarios went through my mind, but none could fulfill his wish. The only acceptable solution then came to my mind, and it was a disturbing one. I eyed the boy again and found myself unable to look at him directly. "But this needs to be done. So you just want to go back to your parents?" I asked. Gideon nodded eagerly with the fire of hope burning in his eyes. Close your eyes. I can bring you home. The boy had a puzzled look on his face but did as ordered. Using the same technique I used on Wellmanor, I used thought acceleration to quickly construct a virtual world with what was seen in his memories. That done, I guided his synapse into the fabricated reality. He was eager, so the process was easy. We have arrived, look around. Gideon gingerly opened his eyes and his jaw dropped upon witnessing his surroundings. It was the living quarter of his old home, the place looking exactly as he remembered. This is? Trembling with disbelief, he looked to me for confirmation. See over there. I pointed to a corner of the living quarter where the boy's parents were smiling warmly to him. "Mum. Dad." Gideon called up and was just about to run over to his folks but stopped himself sharply. He turned to me again and asked for permission. "May I go?" I smiled and nodded. He exploded with pure joy and ran to his parents, being either too excited or young to question everything. As Gideon embraced his simulated parents, I gently overloaded his mind, putting him to sleep in the dreamscape. The boy slumped over, still hugging both psychic simulacrums. Exiting the psychic simulation, I found myself holding the smiling but unconscious boy. I picked him up, somehow finding the boy heavier than the heavy stubber gun from earlier. "I am sorry, kid." Silently I started walking towards Thabrus and Kale with the Battle Sisters maintaining their protective circle around me. The two men stopped their discussion when they saw me approaching. The primary objective of their attack indeed seems to be capturing as many psykers as possible. The only ones they did not manage to get their hands on are the very young ones and recent arrivals. Thabrus informed me before turning his attention to the boy sleeping in my arms. He asked with a tilt of his head, "What happened here?" I thought for a moment before explaining the situation in layman's terms. His power had outgrown the mental seal placed on him. He remembered his life before here and wanted to go home. Regained memories? The lady who was standing a few steps behind Kale exclaimed in surprise, earning herself a look from everyone. She gulped at being the sudden center of attention, bowed and expressed her regret. "Deepest apology for my sudden outburst, lords and ladies." While the scene was mortifyingly serious on the surface, it was low-key hilarious from my point of view. Here was a regal-looking lady who was clearly in charge of a lot of things. Her attire screamed nobility, her psycho augmetics at the back of her scalp were tastefully concealed. She dwarfed my boss from my past life in both air of authority and status, wielded significantly more power, yet at the moment she was bowing like a junior subordinate who had committed some fundamental mistakes. It was however not my style to let people hang high and dry, so I quickly dropped some help. "Well met. I believe we haven't been properly introduced yet. Why don't we start with that? Counterfeit Sir Sean Connery went first. He put a fist on his chest and introduced himself. I am Kale Saigon, Inquisitorial Overseer recently assigned to this installation. It is an honor. Alysia volunteered next. She formed the sign of Aquila smartly before removing her helmet and tucking it under arm. Alysia Sabatith, probationary palatine of the Adepta Sororitas. Then it was the lady's turn. She straightened up as if to regain some composure and did a quick curtsy before introducing herself. I am Drasena Creed, Vice Prefector. Where is the Lord Prefector? Thabris asked, straight to the point as per his usual style. No idea, we haven't been able to contact him since the attack began. Kale said. I am also unable to sense his presence. Drasena remarked. Is he a psyker? I asked, my mind already processing information of the place, trying to locate the man's office. Yes, Lord Prefector Arkansas specialized in divination with tarot cards. Drasena replied. It is a shame he did not foresee this attack coming. Thabris remarked coldly. Drasena's face flushed with anger for a microsecond before responding. Regrettably, Lord Arkansas has expressed frustration in having difficulties with the art lately. That huge oval-shaped room situated on the 5th floor in the middle of the building, is that the Lord Prefector's office? I asked after digging my memory for the details of the place. That sounds like it. Kale said. Silently I activated Auspex and sent a wide-range detection wave in the direction of that room. Drasena was startled upon witnessing my powers. I ignored her reaction. Then the readings came back. My spine chilled upon witnessing the content inside the office. Does Lord Arkansas have a pair of mechanical legs and usually wears a hooded robe? I asked. Yes. That sounds like a proper description of his lordship. Drasena answered hesitantly, unsure of where I was going. In that room is a corpse fitting that description. I believe Lord Arkansas is dead, I declared after double-checking my readings. Drasena gasped in horror, covering her mouth with a hand while Kale just silently nodded with a solemn expression. Unfortunate, but we still have many issues on hand. Vice Prefector Drasena, please explain your surprise from earlier. Thabris said, eager to get things moving. Of course. Drasena gave a light bow again before explaining. I am in charge of and have personally inspected the result of every such procedure that was performed here, and I can assure you with the dignity of my family that everything was done with the highest levels of standard and care. So I beg the pardon from you and the revered Saint Candidate here when I say her statement earlier on the boy being, unfortunately, highly unlikely. Now that was a really roundabout way of saying I was wrong on the subject matter. Thabris, being a non-psyker, was totally out of depth on the subject and did not comment, but I got the boy right here. I approached Drasena with the sleeping Gideon. While your frankness is appreciated, why not just look at him? With that, Drasena reluctantly inspected Gideon and her expression soon changed from stoicness to one of surprise. This can't be, she muttered, eyes widened in shock. As she began to panic, I found myself able to read her mind easily. From the Lady Vice Prefector's point of view, being proven wrong in front of an Inquisitor and a Saint Candidate right after dropping boastful words was as close as it gets for a career suicide, with the honor of her family tagging along for the ride. This unique situation is no fault of yours, I said, trying to give some assurance to Drasena while receiving a side eye from Thabris. I could almost read the Inquisitor's mind. Stop simply helping people all the time. Ignoring the hint, I asked Drasena, can this be fixed? Well, no. We will have to apply the procedure again. The lady started to talk. Her concerns were leaking as I caught glimpses of a few similar cases like this that ended badly with complications. Wait, is the boy fated with a bad ending? Let's get back to the situation at hand. Thabris diverted the subject and turned to me. You mentioned the heretics arrived via tunnels. Any idea where they are? I checked on my readings before replying. They should be located at the northern section of this building, lower level 3 near the laundry area. There are also a few remnant cultists cowering throughout the building. I am updating their positions on the system. Faberus nodded and announced his next course of action. While the captured psychers should be long gone, I am taking the Dominions to check out the tunnels. The Inquisitor then tapped on his data slate as he gave orders. Kale, I am sending you the coordinates. Take your people to apprehend the remaining cultists in these locations. Capturing them alive is preferred but not necessary. He turned back to me again. The Sororitas convoy should be here soon enough. Don't do anything rash. With that he led the Dominions and went looking for the tunnels while Kale led his armed men the other way, leaving me accompanied by Zaki, Alysia and her Celestians with the Scholastica crowd. More violence was coming, a stark contrast to the boy who was sleeping peacefully in my arms. Looking at him, I suddenly felt responsible over Gideon. It was already beyond me to rescue him from his life, but I will be damned if I could at least give him a hand. Back to the issue of this boy, rather than risking complications with multiple procedures, is it possible to just repair it? I asked Dracena. Dracena was flinching a little as she replied. While theoretically possible, it has never been performed. Such a feat requires a level of intense and precise application of psychic power that is beyond our capability. The lady was growing increasingly uncomfortable with the subject, both her expression and surface thoughts were silently begging me to let the issue slide. Mind if I try? I persisted, determined to give the kid a better chance. We will be honored with your assistance in this matter, Dracena said, but I could tell in her mind she had already written off Gideon for whatever happened next. I studied the seal again, and my gut feeling told me what I was about to attempt was doable. While I had no prior experience at all on this, it was easy for me to guess what an intact seal was supposed to be like. Manipulating my powers, I started repairing the broken seal by gently pushing all the tiny protruding pieces back to their original places. It took some effort, but it didn't take long before everything was put back into place. Satisfied with the result, it was time to show it to an expert. Does this look right to you? I asked Dracena, who looked at my work with disbelief before slowly nodding. After receiving confirmation, I reinforced the seal with my power, securing it in place. That should do it. I am entrusting his care to you, I said while handing Gideon to Dracena. The Lady Vice Prefecta hesitated for a second before gingerly receiving the kid. I looked at the crowd at the far end again and recognized Cassie this time, a skinny girl about the same age as Gideon, his secret friend in this place. Our eyes met. I read her fear and trepidation as she quickly looked away, a far cry from the mischievous girl shown in the boy's memory. I then noticed the two Mechonicus tech priests seemed to be doing something peculiar. It felt like they were discussing and looking at things unseen even by my psychic senses. Is that? Noospheric connection, activated. I opened myself to the network and sure enough, there was an information node here. I logged into the network with my universal administrative credential and started browsing. It was the database of the Scholastica, containing everything from the mundane stuff to the classified. I was still glancing at the massive amount of information when my mind registered Flame Raven's return, this time well aware of the gunship's Vox boosting capability. By dipping my consciousness into the Vox network, I could even eavesdrop into the various communications between Imperial forces within its coverage. I was soon listening to a Vox call between Alysia and a Sister Superior Lucia who had arrived with Wellmanor, Malin and 3 squads of Retributors. I was reminded of the pending battle for the outer perimeter. While there was little I could do for the Psychers here, I could probably cut down our casualties for the incoming fight. Save those I can save. Deciding on my action, I logged off from the Noospheric network and noticed the 2 tech priests were looking straight at me. Both of them were motionless, still as statues. Well, don't mind me. Lady Dracena, I addressed the Vice Prefecta to announce my intention. It was nice meeting you. I am heading to the ground floor. After receiving a hasty nod from the lady, I turned to my little friend. Zaki, I got to go. You are as busy as Master Faberus, Zaki said and posed for a hug, a luxury for him. I obliged the little fella with a light hug and bid him farewell, take care. With that done I turned to Alysia. Let's get back. As you command, the Palatine replied reverently. Turning my back on the Scholastica crowd, I started walking. The truth was I simply wanted to leave this suffocating and sorry place as soon as possible. Sisters, I am going to pick up my pace, please keep up. I increased my speed, my mind already working with many possible stratagems to be used in the upcoming fight. There were many things I could do to increase our advantage. I could deploy the Retributors to form a kill zone before imitating Makatar to issue a hasty order of retreat, luring all the cultists into a death trap. I could coordinate with Neandra, making sure her target would scream and broadcast that moment to all the cultists as she struck. I could also just simulate Makatar's death scream and broadcast it to the cultists' General Vox channel, which would be mighty disruptive, or I could do all three. Imagine hearing the death screams of both your highest-ranking commanders as you retreat into a hail of heavy bolter fire with ranks of battle sisters sandwiching from the back. In fact, at this point I was pretty confident about just going in on my own, grabbing a gun and ending all of them personally, Matrix style. They are just humans with autoguns, they have no chance. After conducting a strafing run to clear off some cultists on the Scholastica rooftop, Flameraven again landed with a new strike force. Stepping off from the gunship, Wellmanor was reminded of the fact she was no frontliner and almost gagged at the sight and smell of the place. While she could tell Maylin was as uncomfortable as herself when confronted with messy human remains resulting from heavy bolter attacks, the same could not be said of Sister Superior Liana, who was the leader of the new forward teams. Sister Liana did not even flinch at the bloody scene as she quickly made contact with Palatine Alysia. After receiving her orders, Liana and her 3 squads of Retributors simply stepped over the mess and went straight downstairs, leaving the scholar and the preacher to catch up to the heavily armed battle sisters. Upon reaching the ground floor, Wellmanor was surprised to see a squad of battle sisters led by a Sister Veryan guarding a choke point. After a quick discussion, Squad Veryan was relieved to escort Wellmanor and Maylin to the Palatine's position. So the group went deeper into the building and came across many deceased cultists with bolter wounds. Wellmanor was relieved to never come across a martyred sister, while Maylin praised the holy work done in the name of righteous retribution. Halfway through, the group suddenly received a vox from the Holy Daughter herself. Sister Veryan, Wellmanor, Maylin. Be advised, we are heading towards your position. As the battle sisters held their position and weapons in check, Sirin appeared from the gloomy corridor and approached with astonishing speed. Behind her came Palatine Alysia and her Celestians, struggling to keep pace despite having the aid of motion-amplifying power armor. Stopping before the astonished group like she wasn't dashing at a speed of more than 50 km per hour just a moment ago, Sirin casually said, "We are done here, there are other cultists to deal with outside. Let's go." While the Holy Daughter had looked and acted no different than usual, Wellmanor thought she detected a strange hint of melancholy from her mistress. That notion, however, was quickly forgotten by the scholar as she realized she would soon witness Sirin personally taking command of a battle for the first time to crush the heretics. The news of the Chaos cult's audacious attack would later send shockwaves through the capital city, but what stunned the citizens even more was the remarkable speed with which the large-scale assault was quelled by the authorities. The decisive counterstrike operation was widely rumored to be led by none other than the Saint Candidate herself, and the sororitas suffered not a single casualty that day.